July 25, 1944, 9:38 a.m., Normandy. Lieutenant General Fritz Bayerlein, commander of an elite Panzer Division, stands inside his command bunker, eyes fixed on the clock. 6 weeks of uninterrupted combat have passed since the Allied landings. His division, among the Wehrmacht's best trained, armored units, still holds its ground. Outside, American artillery has suddenly gone silent after weeks of relentless harassment. Silence, unnatural, deeply unsettling. Within 60 seconds, Bayerlein will realize that this quiet was the final sound his soldiers would ever hear before the ground itself erupted into hell. Before history seals this chapter in ink, one thing must be made clear. What followed was not merely an artillery barrage. It was not just bombardment. It was the calculated annihilation of an entire division, the Industrial Revolution, repurposed for destruction. The precise moment when centuries of German military tradition, Prussian discipline, tactical brilliance, and some of the finest tanks ever built, collided with something it could not physically comprehend. This is not simply a battle story. It is a forensic examination of the most devastating artillery method ever deployed. This is the story of time on target, the synchronized strike, and the verdict delivered by American industry to the German army. Nail 1, the superiority trap, or why the world's best army went blind. To understand why Bayerlein and his men were doomed, we must rewind several years to a critical miscalculation. In 1944, the German army remained the most professional military force on Earth. They pioneered blitzkrieg, crushed France in 6 weeks, and stood at the gates of Moscow. Their tactics, discipline, and officer corps were universally regarded as the gold standard. That reputation became their weakness. When you believe you are the best, you stop learning. When you keep winning, you assume you already know every answer. German artillery doctrine had been refined over decades. Schwerpunkt, concentration of fire at the decisive point, combined speed, precision, and close coordination between observers and batteries. It worked in Poland, France, and the Soviet Union. So when German intelligence received early reports about American artillery methods in North Africa, they dismissed them outright. Kasserine Pass, February 1943. American artillery performed poorly. Batteries were scattered, coordination was weak, and German forces inflicted a decisive defeat. German officers drew a simple conclusion: Americans were amateurs with good equipment. That judgment drove the first nail, not into an American coffin, but into German arrogance. While Germany congratulated itself, the Americans were doing something their enemies struggled to do: learning, adapting, and applying industrial management to warfare. Nail 2, the death factory. 4 innovations that changed everything. While German forces celebrated Kasserine, a quiet revolution unfolded at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Since the 1930s, officers led by Majors Carlos Brewer and Orlando Ward asked a radical question. What if artillery was treated not as separate batteries, but as a single integrated system? Innovation 1 was the Fire Direction Center. Innovation 2 was communications. Innovation 3 was standardization. Americans calculated trajectories to the second. Germans recalibrated with every new shipment. Imagem cobre o bloco completo dessas 3 inovações. Innovation 4 was time on target itself. The principle was simple. Batteries positioned at varying distances calculated their individual shell flight times, then fired in reverse order. The farthest guns fired first, the closest last. Hundreds of shells arrived simultaneously, not over minutes, not over seconds, in a single second. Nail 3, the mathematics of annihilation. That single second changed everything. Traditional artillery warns. Time on target executes. There was no first shell. Every casualty occurred in the opening second. Nail 4, Operation Cobra, the day the Earth became the moon. On July 25, 1944, General Omar Bradley assembled the largest artillery concentration the U.S. Army had ever fielded in Europe. By noon, the terrain resembled the surface of the moon. Panzer Lehr ceased to exist as a fighting force in a single day. Morton, the Falaise Pocket, the Ardennes, Time on target became offensive, defensive, and inescapable. Time on target was not merely a tactic. It was the expression of American industrial power. This was not a difference in methods. It was a difference in systems. Instant destruction erased every coping mechanism soldiers had learned. No build-up, no rhythm, no warning. Medical reports described lasting trauma and fear of synchronicity itself. Germany did not lose because its soldiers were inferior. It lost because it tried to fight a system with individual men. This was no longer traditional warfare. It was an industrial process.